How do you think this forum can be helpful for Africa and Africa-Europe relations?
Well, I think it's important to get European companies and European governments up to speed in thinking what steps can they take that will be useful for Africa. It's not messages to Africa, it's thinking through what Europe's companies and Europe's governments could do better that would be helpful.
What do you think they could do better?
I think there are two central issues that African governments are struggling with. One is to provide jobs, and one is to provide justice, fighting down corruption.
Okay, examples?
Jobs. The North African revolutions were fundamentally about jobs for young people, and Sub-Saharan Africa has produced less jobs for young people than any other region in the world. So Sub-Saharan Africa has a jobs crisis. There's a big opportunity, which is that over the next decade, Africa could break into the labor-intensive end of manufacturing as Chinese firms find that wages in China are rising so fast that manufacturing activity has to be offshored out of China. Africa could break into that, and there's a lot of jobs at stake. But it's hard to break in, it's hard to get those first firms. And to pump prime that, Europe could do a much better job of giving privileged market access to those African countries which are on the edge of breaking into manufacturing.
How do you see the result of Ghana?
Ghana would be a good example of a country that's really quite close, I think, to breaking into global manufacturing. But because Ghana is not a least developed country, it's not eligible for Europe's everything but arms scheme. So Europe needs to rethink its trade relations and make its privileged market access more generous for the countries that are in a position to break into global manufacturing markets.
Okay, so last question. Do you agree with those who think that the West is doing in Africa, for example in Libya now with this war, and in Côte d'Ivoire, is neo-colonialism?
Not at all. I think we're assisting Africans in their own struggle for liberation from oppression. And I think Europe did exactly the right thing in Libya, in supporting that uprising, with obviously not with troops on the ground, but it stopped the brave people who were raising up against oppression being slaughtered by Gaddafi's air force. And of course in Côte d'Ivoire, this was the African Union that was leading the way. The African Union refused to recognize Gbagbo after he'd stolen the election. And so it was the African Union which led the force deposing Gbagbo, and Europe just helped, supported that by cutting off finances.
Okay, some argues that all these institutions like the AFDB, African Development Bank, and African Union are just West supported because they are funded by Europe, so they cannot be truly African independent.
Some people are just paranoid crazy, right? You telling the African Union that it isn't African? I mean, anybody who says that is just nuts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.